Fuji has once again irritated and disappointed my nervous system with a XH2s release. Somehow unforgivably, before the XH2, you've released a variant of a camera that doesn't exist yet. Your timeline is not on my watch. How does it compare to the competition, you ask? There's some stuff. I'll let you know.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
We're on the Canon R5C, 35mm Tony 1.8, C-Log 3. I find this autofocus to be working quite nicely, actually. Thank you, cinema cameras. So first a little side rant, and then we compare to the competition: A7 IV, R6, R7, Olympus OM-1, GH6. Nikon has nothing. I was on the DP review site. I saw Barney. He answered a question. He said something about, this is a stacked sensor. That's why it's so expensive. The speed, the unbelievable speed advantages that we're getting. This is why it's priced similar to some full frame cameras. If you look at a stacked full frame, this is a bargain. A bargain chip right there. That's a deal. Where is the speed coming in my life? Where are the benefits? The Fuji X-H2s did HD 240p, and now this super speed stacked sensor does the same spec with a bigger crop. What happened? I haven't seen any comparisons yet. I don't know if it's sharper, if that extra crop somehow made the moire disappear, maybe. But so far, we got 4K 120p. Okay, you did it. You beat the XT3 of 60p of yonder year, but you cropped extra to do it. I'm not seeing the speed advantages for video, and you marketed it as a video camera with your F-Log 2. I'll flog to your mom. I've done it. So it appears that Sony A7 IV would be the biggest competition to the Fuji X-H2s. And in my opinion, the advantages, Sony is basically APS-C in your 4K 60. It'll be much sharper, I guarantee it, than Fuji's 4K 60 or 120. Better autofocus, better stabe. Take that to the bank. But it's an APS-C. And that's as high as you can go. Fuji does 4K 120p now. So that's better. It's probably going to look somewhat comparable. Just not as sharp. That's not always the most important thing. So Fuji has an edge in the spec department. Sony's only doing HD 120p. That's not very fun. Fuji does 240. I don't know what it looks like. Hopefully better than the XT4. But in general with Sony, you're getting a full frame camera with better autofocus, more polish, better IBIS, in my opinion, with the active stabe, if you're careful. Works better. So Fuji, that's a tough sell. I'm a sucker for magic in this universe. So Fuji has that magic. X-Trans sensor, more dynamic range with the Flog 2. I don't mind that. So that's a tough, if it's me, I'm going for wildlife. I get the Fuji X-H2s with either keeping my 100 to 400 or getting that new 150 to 600. It would be nice. 4K 120p, I like those odds. If it was for YouTube, this shit, no. We're doing Sony all the way, full frame, autofocus dependable. Much like a Canon system now is. I plussed everything. Plus response, plus speed. It works. R6. Here's where you get disappointed in bed when your girlfriend says, "What happened? Are we finished?" Yeah, I was, quickly. The Canon R6 is doing similar stuff to the A7 IV. It's basically a replica, less of a crop in 4K 60p. I think it's tiny 10% crop, and it's better than the R5's 4K 60p. Take that to the bank. 120p is just 1080. It will have better IBIS, better autofocus than the Fuji. But that comes at a fault of custom modes missing. You cannot switch. That is bullshit. You know, Olympus doesn't have custom modes in their EM1 Mark III, but it's a very quick menu, one switch over. Just boom, the HD is right there, 120 frames, and then back to 4K 24p. Very easy. In Canon R6, they make it so hard, where you don't just switch from 4K 60 and then 1080. No, you gotta, turn high frame rates on and then go back. So I think the Fuji X-H2s would beat the R6 in wildlife for magic, and for a YouTube setup, it would lose hard, I imagine. Pretty bad. I figure we throw in the R7 just because it's just announced and it's APS-C. They're not in the same price bracket. Fuji trounces on the spec sheet. A little dirt in there. Fuji's much better in every way, but when it comes to using the camera, first, like that 4K 60p with an 81% crop, that's a less than 1 inch sensor. That's not going to look even close to as good as Fuji's 4K 120p. I guarantee it. Never tried it, but it's likely bad. But it will have better autofocus, for sure. Animal eye detect, better stabe, better high-end lenses. They just feel better. That Canon 100 to 500, when you zoom in, it's like, yep, that's how that should work. Whereas the 100 to 400, it's like, I hear things inside of it. It's a little stiff. It ain't right. When it comes to the Olympus OM-1 OMDS, formerly known as Olympus, better autofocus? Yes, it will have. Better stabe? Worse specs in every other way? Yep. 4K 60p, you get worse dynamic range, better colors, potentially, similar, but it's that dynamic range that's really gonna get you in the end. That's the magic look. Just a side rant. I just watched Potato Jet's Airy Alexa 35 review, and I'm like, that's a company who knows. They're not chasing 12K, 8K, 6K. They're like, what's the best 4K we can do? Increasing the dynamic range and the color fidelity? How does that represent color? It doesn't. Sure, it's $100,000, but they're putting the effort in. They focused on that high end. You think Airy couldn't come out with a mirrorless camera, a ghetto version that's just like leads the industry in dynamic range? They could. They foresee the dying industry that we inhabitate ourselves in. Cameras are done for, but I hold on for dear life because they're fun. But Airy, that's what we should be focusing on. I don't see any of the big 6 mirrorless camera companies focusing on that. We already have Canon, Nikon, Sony shooting for 8K, and Alexa's sitting back there like, what? Seriously? Like, what are you doing? What are we doing here? This does 8K. Who would need that? I'm in 1080p. The 4K is way too sharp on this thing. Are you kidding me? I don't even have teenage girl scan yet to deserve it. No. No. If I was shooting wildlife, 100% I go Fuji X-H2 over this Olympus OM-1. Not even close. The dynamic range, cheap look, over-sharpened, single autofocus slow-mo. The 4K 60 might look okay, but that's 4K 60. We have that in XT3. Give me a break. Give me a break. When it comes to Panty Boy, oh, now we have a battle on our hands, don't we? GH6. 4K 120p, we both do it. GH6 doesn't crop. 2 times crop as a Micro Four loser. Compared to the bigger APS-C sensor, cropping 1.29 times the 1.5, we're looking at 1.935 versus 2. Very similar now. Little 6.5% difference. That's not much. That is not much. I feel like Panasonic will be a bit sharper. I haven't tested it, but I feel that in here. It'll have less dynamic range though. When it comes to the HD 240, Panasonic does 300, but it looks like absolute trash from what I've seen. But if you back it down to 240, it's somewhat respectable. I don't know how it's going to compare, but the XH2s, for some reason, has a 38% crop now in 240 frames. I hope that it's because that makes it sharper somehow. I don't see how it would, because now you're looking at a 2.07 times crop. Smaller than Micro Four Thirds. You thought you bought an APS-C. You're reaching for medium format one day. Not, what time is it? Oh my god. So Panasonic might even have the edge in 240 frames, just not dynamic range, or nice looks, or color science. But it'll have better stabe, 0 autofocus. Just don't even try it. You want to track something moving, it'll be like, it's getting in, then whip. Whip. It's just the pulse whip. Bad news. If it was me right now shopping, I think I still lean Fuji X-H2s. I want to see it. It should have better animal eye detect in video. Sometimes at least. And that could be fun. The stabe will be much worse though. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. That's a 50-50 toss-up. The only deciding factor is that bullshit Leica lens, the 100 to 400 being so stiff. If they could come out with a Mark II or something better than that, that'd be nice. Nikon has nothing for the Fuji system. The Z9 destroys it, but then the Z6 II, it's kind of like an R6 type of thing. It's not even exciting to talk about. I threw up in my mouth just mentioning the word Nikon. I like to curb our enthusiasm. When a new release comes out, it's so exciting. All the morons are like, oh, look at that new shiny thing. Let's buy it. Just calm down, relax. It's nice. I would rather have it than the X-T4. It seems like nothing got worse, really, except that crop in 240 frames, but it might be a benefit. We don't know yet. I haven't seen it. Until I see it, you haven't seen it. We need my tests, and Fuji left me out. They left me in the dark on that one. That's rude, Fuji. That's a Kaizen chop. But it appears to be better than the Fuji X-T4 in every way. Hopefully the IBIS is improved, and with some firmware updates, we might have something. Autofocus should be better, but I don't know. I'm a little underwhelmed so far from what I've seen. You can't trust a review. Never base your purchasing decision on the first wave of YouTube morons who get the camera early release, except mine, of course, because we know I'm going to be critical here. I don't lie. I don't false judge. No false witness in the Bible. I read it and I'm like, you know what? I don't even thumb up my own videos anymore. That would give you the appearance that somebody liked my video. That's how on point I am. If you've ever thumbed up your own comment, enjoy Satan's couch, because that's where you'll be sitting for a long time. How long's eternity? It's a while. So I'm going to leave. I have to release that Sony video right now. It's 9:54. Everybody's already released it. I'm last in line. Buy a Camera Conspiracies t-shirt. The ton of shirts are available in the shop. What do you think? Fuji X-H2s, did it beat anything? Some things, as we saw by my list. You'll buy them all through my affiliate links. Subscribe. I need more of those.